Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about Season 1 of Shadow and Bone. So, before I head into my thoughts and feelings on Season 1 of Shadow and Bone, which aired on Netflix, I'm not planning on having any sort of spoilers in this video, but I would definitely love to have a conversation about spoilers in the comments down below if anybody would like to go into more depth and detail about certain things. Fangirl or fanboy with me, I would love to do that and have a conversation with you. But yeah, for the purposes of this video, to try and keep it brief and short, I think I'm going to stick kind of primarily to my, my initial impressions and my enjoyment of the show. So yeah, no spoilers. So yeah, let's get going. So, how did I feel about Season 1 of Shadow and Bone? So, first off, this is based off a trilogy of books. I think the trilogy is called, like, the Grisha trilogy, something like that, something along those lines. And they're written by Leigh Bardugo, and my understanding is that the trilogy, Leigh Bardugo kind of was inspired, kind of her world building. She was essentially inspired by like Russian culture and I think mythology, and there are, as you're watching the show, and I guess when you're reading the books as well, I think you can definitely pick up on those heavy Russian influences. Especially while I was watching the show, I could definitely notice it with maybe how a building looked, because in Russia they're very famous for like the onion domes on the building, and yeah, the clothing especially. The clothing definitely had a very Russian look to it, their hats and everything, just the material, the landscape looked very Russian to me. So yeah, what Shadow and Bone is about, let me kind of get into that. I'm going to try to do as best of a summary as I can, you guys. Let me make this clear, in case anybody's watching this, so people aren't, griping down below or whatever in the comments. Let me make it clear, I have not read the books. I have heard a lot about the books. I know they're extremely popular. I have not read them, but I tell you what, after watching this first season, I'm definitely a lot more intrigued to pick up the books, that's for sure. So yeah, if I'm getting something terribly mistaken or wrong or confused, mispronouncing something, I don't know, yeah, just let it be known, I have not read the books, so yeah, I do apologize if I get something just totally messed up here. But yeah, as far as the story, the plot, let me try my best here, because it's pretty heavy. The plot of the show is fairly kind of heavy. And it was it was a lot for me to kind of process and take in initially, especially in that first episode. But yeah, we take place in like this fantasy world, essentially. And what has happened, that the continent that these people are on, something like that, the continent that these people are on, there's like this big wall, this big black, shadowy, willowy, dark black wall thingy. It's all, think of it this way, it's almost like, on Game of Thrones, there's the big ice wall. There's the big ice wall separating, the north from the even farther up north, So that's almost like what this big shadowy black wall is. It almost serves as a similar sort of thing like the wall does on Game of Thrones, But yeah, this wall is like more creepy and terrifying, and there's like scary, terrifying creatures that lurk within the darkness and whatnot. So yeah, there's this big shadowy wall that's like blocking the continent, and there's all sorts of like mythology about how this wall came into existence and whatnot, and these mysterious, terrifying creatures and whatnot, and yeah, the continent, since it is divided, it's like there's there's this side, that side, it almost kind of makes me think of another wall reference, like the Berlin Wall, dividing Germany and whatnot. So yeah, this wall is dividing these different peoples, and they all are, they're kind of rivals, and they don't get along. It seems that was kind of my understanding. It's like they don't get along. It's like you have General Kerrigan over on this side, played by Ben Barnes, and then another general over here, played by Tom Weston Jones. Yeah, in this world, I feel like I'm taking forever to get through this plot, you guys. But yeah, so yeah, a big wall. That's all you need to know. This world is populated by magical people known as Grisha, and they can have the power to like heal or do whatever, essentially, any magical sort of thing. So yeah, I guess that's as far as I'll go with the plot, I guess, because I don't want to get too much into it and start totally butchering the plot, but yeah, that's kind of it, essentially. And yeah, it's like based off of a young adult series, so you have young people who are trying to, you know, make a difference and stand up and do things, and that's where Alina Starkov comes in, and her friend Mal. And yeah, Alina, though, she discovers kind of through a chance series of circumstances, really, a series of events, she kind of comes to realize that she herself has magical powers, and that she's more than just a simple girl. She is someone very powerful and can be very influential, and she has the power to essentially save this world, and the potential to possibly take down this mysterious, terrifying wall with the help of General Kerrigan, like I said, played by Ben Barnes. So yeah, that's kind of where we are at the start of this show. Hopefully that plot is good, you guys. So yeah, my thoughts and feelings on this show. I was pleasantly surprised, you guys. I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, I'd never read the books before. I wasn't quite sure how this show was going to appeal to me, and I'm glad to say I thoroughly loved it. I loved the characters. I really liked just the nature of this world, the look of the world, the magic system. Yeah, once again, the characters. You know, any given show, you gotta fall in love with the characters. You know, if you don't fall with the characters, your show's gonna fall flat at the end of the day, and it's not gonna be very successful. So yeah, fortunately, I really latched on to the characters. You know, good characters, bad characters, villain characters, whatever, complicated characters. I loved every single one of them. I pretty much felt like a lot of them were very well fleshed out and whatnot. Now, as far as just a few, I'll kind of get into some of my negatives here very, very quickly, and they're not even really massive negatives, because I don't know if it's so much the fault of the show or the fault of me, the viewer. But yeah, some of my initial problems with the show was just the nature of the world building, if you will. And the thing is, I think any given sort of show or movie that's based off of a fantasy world, you know, that could be anything from, you know, C.S. Lewis's Narnia, or J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, or George R. Martin's Game of Thrones. You know, you're always gonna have extensive, crazy world building. So that was kind of my initial problem with the show, is, you know, really getting into I liked the world building, you know, don't get me wrong, I definitely loved the world building, but it was a lot on occasion, and the show doesn't really give you time to like sink into it. A lot of stuff, you know, whether that be names or places or terms, a lot of that stuff would be kind of thrown out at you, and it wouldn't really be explained until much later, you know, much later in an episode, or much later down near the end of the series or something. So yeah, I initially, you know, starting the show, I did feel kind of overwhelmed at first. Like, oh, okay, oh my god, slow down a little bit. I'm trying to process, you know, what does this mean? Who is this? What is this? What is this place, you know? So yeah, like I said, I don't know if that's so much the fault of the show, or if it's the fault of me, because I don't know how the show, you know, how much they're assuming, you know, how many people are watching the show that have read the books, for instance, you know? I think for the most part, though, I think the show is pretty easy for someone who's not read the books to get into. I mean, yeah, there's still stuff, it's a little overwhelming, but I think over the course of the show, as things are better developed and better explained, I think even a non-book reader like myself, I was able to be like, oh, okay, I'm getting it now, it's sticking in my head, you know. I think this type of show, like any sort of fantasy show or movie, it definitely bears repeat viewing. You know what I mean? The more you repeat watch something, especially a fantasy world, the more things are going to stick out to you, and you're going to absorb lingo, you know, names, places, terms, whatever. You're going to absorb it. So yeah, I definitely would love to have a rewatch of this first season at some point, maybe before the second season comes out. So that way I can kind of better get myself into the world and what's kind of going on in better detail, you know? So yeah, that was seriously really my only negatives with the show. It was just kind of the overall world building and everything kind of being tossed out at you just super quickly and rapidly and whatnot. And I was kind of struggling initially, like, okay, wait, slow down. I need to process this. You know, because at least when you're reading a book, you have the time to be like, okay, let me reread this passage, you know. But when you're watching something, I mean, you can sit and hit the rewind, but still, sometimes it moves so quickly, even during a rewind, you know. But yeah, I seriously enjoyed the show, you guys, and I'm thinking it's gonna be picked up for a second and third season, hopefully, because I think it was pretty successful, because wasn't it #1? Netflix has been doing that thing, you know, the top 10 of the week or whatever, and I think it's been #1 for the past week or two, or however long it's been out, by the time this video goes out. I do want to touch on the characters really quickly, because I especially just really enjoyed the characters. Yeah, Alina, played by, I believe her name is pronounced Jessie May Lee. I really loved Alina and the actress's performance. I bought her in the role, you know, which I think is very, very important. I could buy her, you know, because she starts off, she's essentially like a map maker at the start of the show, and she slowly kind of just got, well, not really even slowly, it kind of just rapidly happens to her, you know, her discovering, hey, I have this gift with light, you know, and using this light in a certain way. You know, her discovering she's a Grisha, a magical being. I really love that rapid development of her character, and her like being dropped into this all of a sudden, you know, being tossed out of her simple life, you know, as part of this military unit, I guess is what it is. I loved her character. I loved her journey. I loved her relationship with Mal. You know, it's like, it's one of those questionable things, like, okay, are they friends? Are they more than friends? What's going on there? And then don't get me started on her relationship with General Kerrigan, you guys, the Darkling, as he's called. Don't get me started on that. I'll talk about Ben Barnes in a minute. Good God. Let me back up and talk about Mal. I don't want to forget about poor Mal. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about Mal, because a lot of times the other love interest in a lot of these young adult things, a lot of times I'm just not into the other guy when I'm, you know, when I'm reading or watching these things. Because let me tell you, like Twilight, for instance, I was always team Edward more than I was team Jacob. Even with the Hunger Games, I was always more team Gale than I was team Peeta. And that's very much kind of the same thing that happened to me during Shadow and Bone. I was definitely more team General Kerrigan than I was team Mal. Even though Mal is the sweet and pure nice guy, you know, it's like I still liked Ben Barnes' character way more. But still, I liked Mal. Like I mentioned already, I loved his relationship. I loved his personality, what he was able to provide for Alina in terms of, you know, strengths, certain types of strengths he had, you know. I loved him. And then, I mean, the one characters, let me move on to the other characters as well. What are they called? Are they called the Crows? I don't know if the show, once again, I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention. I don't know if the show ever referred to these characters as the Crows, because on the Netflix, on Netflix, you know, in the info box, it mentioned, like, the Crows, and I assumed it was referring to that trio of characters, you know, Kaz, Inej, Jesper. I guess that's what they're called, the crows. I tell you what, they were definitely a big highlight for me, Kaz, Inez, and Jesper. In some ways, they were kind of like the comedic relief, if you will. I really love their role and function in the story, because it provided a lot of humor, a lot of suspense at times. Yeah, they're out there trying to hunt down Alina. They kind of have their own mission to target Alina and capture her, their own purposes and whatnot. That trio was great. Within their own little trio, they all had their own specific relationships and roles, and it totally worked for me. I loved it, because when I first, you know, got introduced to them into the show, I was like, oh Lord, I would like to go back to Alina, you know, because I was enjoying Alina's story so much, and I was like, oh, who are these people? Am I gonna like them? Am I gonna hate them? And I'm glad to say I liked those characters and whatnot. And yes, Jesper and, was it Milo the goat? If you've seen the show, Milo the goat, best thing ever. Seriously, that whole part in that little train when they're going through the black shadowy thingy, the fold, is that what it's called? That was some of the most intense stuff I've ever seen in my life, you guys, but so great and kind of hilarious at the same time. And that Milo the goat was great. So yeah, I love the crows, you guys. As far as some other minor characters, I guess another minor complaint I'm going to have here: the characters of Nina and Matthias. Don't get me wrong, I freaking adored Nina and Matthias. Yeah, guys, that relationship was pretty epic. It had all sorts of sexual tension and goodness, but at the same time, I was like, okay, what is their role exactly in this show? What is their purpose? Because you do find out, you know, because the crows were initially supposed to, correct me if I'm mistaken, you guys, but yeah, the crows were initially supposed to go on their journey to get Alina with Nina. Correct? But yeah, some stuff kind of fell through, and she gets captured by this witch hunter, is what he was being called, Matthias. But yeah, Matthias and Nina end up developing kind of a certain type of relationship with one another, kind of this love-hate sort of thing. Like I said, don't get me wrong, I love their relationship, I love their characters, but at the end of the day, I kept wondering, okay, what's their role, what's their function in the overall grand scheme of this big epic plot that's going on around them, because they're just this one little tiny unit of what's going on. And the thing is, their purpose is not really totally explained until literally the very, very end of episode 8 to the season finale. And then it kind of becomes a lot clearer, like, oh, okay, I can see how they're going to function into the remainder of the show now, you know? So yeah, that was really my only other minor complaint, was, yeah, the Nina and Matthias plot, because I just didn't understand it until literally the end of the show, when something's kind of brought up. But I still really like them, and I'm definitely curious to see where that story and that relationship's gonna go. And then yeah, I gotta jump right on board Ben Barnes, you guys. His performance as the Darkling, General Kerrigan, however you want to call him, Alexander, whatever his name is. He has so many freaking names in this show. I freaking loved Ben Barnes, you guys. He is probably the biggest name on this show, I feel like. I'm trying to think, is there somebody else maybe bigger than him on this show? I feel like he is the biggest, most known name on this show, because all the other young people are pretty much unknowns, to the best of my knowledge. But yeah, General Kerrigan, definitely, you know me, if anyone knows me, if you've been on this channel a long time, I definitely love a good, what shall I say, a good anti-hero, a good villain, a good antagonist, however you want to view it. He was definitely one of the most interesting characters, one of the most complex characters. Don't get me started on the hair, the facial hair, the clothing, the magical powers, just the way he would use his abilities, because his special things like weaving darkness, if you will, you know, he can make things dark, but Alina can make things light. It's like this great, you know, dynamic going on between them, you know, this whole literally dark versus light battle that's going on between them, and I love that whole thing, you know, It is. It's one of the bigger themes, you know, good versus evil, essentially, going on in this show. And it's literally represented with, you know, her power of light and his power of darkness and whatnot. But yeah, loved the Darkling character. You guys, I could not get enough of him. Whenever it would leave him, I'd be like, please, go back to him. You know, even though I loved everybody else, it's like, please, go back to him. I could spend a whole damn show with that character. And yeah, I just really liked his motivations. You know, it's like he had some genuinely interesting motivations and reasons for why he was doing what he was doing and whatnot, you know, instead of him just being a mustache twirling villain. You know, every so often I do like a good mustache twirling villain, but I do prefer, you know, the more interesting, complex, you know, really dark villains that, you know, that have really good motivations and agendas and whatnot, that comes from like a real place in a sense. So yeah, Ben Barnes was definitely the big highlight for me, you guys. Freaking loved him. And I mean, that's pretty much it for this this cast. I mean, that's kind of your core unit of characters, you know, Alina, Mal, the Darkling, the Crows, Nina, Matthias, and whatnot. I mean, that's kind of your primary set of characters, and then kind of these other scattering characters that are probably, I feel like, are going to play much larger, important roles later down in the series, you know. You know, because it's a trilogy, so I'm assuming people are going to function in different ways as we continue here. But yeah, I seriously really enjoyed this show, you guys. I was pleasantly surprised, because I was worried I wasn't going to particularly like it, you know, but I am glad to say I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for another season, because I hope it does get picked up for another season. I don't see why it won't. Yeah, great characters, you know, even though the world building was essentially kind of overwhelming for me at first. The thing is, I did eventually get it, you know. I did eventually kind of get it, and it started clicking for me, but yeah, pretty much by the end. I definitely want to have a good rewatch and pay better attention. You know, pay better attention to the lingo, the just, you know, the world, how this world is, you know, the locations, because there's a lot of locations in this, and it's kind of like, okay, what's what, you know, who's good, who's bad, you know, who's the enemy exactly. So yeah, I think a repeat viewing will definitely benefit me heading into future seasons and whatnot, so I can kind of jump on board and make sense of things better. But yeah, I love the show, you guys. Like I said, please talk about spoilers with me down below, because there were seriously some really epic moments, you know, very intense moments, like you're just on the edge of your seat when certain things are happening. It's like, oh my god, how are people going to get out of this? The special effects, wow, the special effects on the show were great. Yeah, guys, I was a little worried. I was like, oh, are they gonna have a good budget for this, you know? But yeah, this show had a fantastic budget. Nothing ever looked cheesy or stupid, you know. Everything fit, you know. It's like Game of Thrones, you know. Game of Thrones had a fantastic budget, and yeah, this show has an amazing budget as well to really enmesh you into the world and the creatures and, you know, the overall design and look of this place. You know, you need to be in it. You need to be deep into it, and it needs to feel like a real place, you know, and you need to feel like you can touch this place and touch these clothes and the environment and whatnot, you know. So yeah, special effects were definitely super amazing and impressive. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this show, you guys. I freaking loved it. I think it might be a new obsession for me. So you guys, that is it for my, I don't know, rambling review of Shadow and Bone. Seriously, I just went into this. I didn't even bother to make any notes, you guys. I kind of just wanted to go into it and just whatever I felt like. It's just how I feel. Maybe I should have taken notes, because I seriously feel like this review was rather rambling, and I didn't know what I was talking about half the time, I feel like. but seriously, love the show. Definitely am excited to hear what you guys thought about the show. And yeah, if you're a book reader, yeah, if you have some little hints and teases you want to share with me from the books, please do. But yeah, no spoilers. So that's it for this review of Shadow and Bone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.